Rebel Heasley is a nurse leader, a grandmother, a wife, and for years, she was someone who couldn't tell the difference between love and fear. And today, I have the absolute pleasure of being able to speak with her today and listen to her as she tells her story. Welcome to Elisha Space, a sanctuary for healing growth and for the kind of honest conversations that actually change things. I'm Elisha, your host, counselor, and author, and someone who has sat in the same stuck places you have. If you've been listening for a while, I see you, and I'm glad that you're back. And if you're new here, welcome home. Today's episode is practical, clinical, but pastoral. And I'm sitting with Rebel Heasley, a nurse leader, a survivor, a thriver, and someone who knows what it means to lose everything, including the feeling of God's presence. And she found her way back. Her message is simple and it's powerful. Your past may inform you, but it does not define your potential. Rebel, I am so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, Elisha. It's great to be here.
Well, let's start where it actually started, not at the end of the story, at the beginning of the isolation. Because I think people hearing this need to understand something. Isolation isn't just he didn't let me see my friends, it's neurological. So, Rebel, take us into what that actually looked like for you. When did you first notice the isolation wasn't accidental, that it was strategic?
It, you don't just notice it all of a sudden, it happens over time. And then you just realize that people in your life have disappeared. And you wake up one day and your family, your friends, your colleagues, your church family are no longer around. Essentially, are isolated from everybody that you used to be tapped into and very close with. You're not shopping with your girlfriends on Saturday afternoon. You're not going to church on Sunday mornings. You're not going for a drink on Friday evenings anymore. You're not doing the family events that you've always done. And all of a sudden, you're literally just with your partner. And you don't really realize how that happened because you were always the person who was involved with everybody and out and about and very social and very much involved with everybody and wanted to be involved with everybody.
Share how the relationship started and what that slow erosion of connections look like.
The relationship was your fairy tale relationship. We met at our or re-met at our 15-year high school reunion, and we had sort of known each other in high school, but not really. We didn't run with the same crowd, and we were both single at our 15-year high school reunion, and we just hung out that evening and decided that we swapped numbers and we started going out, and it was uh, kind of a crush at first sight. And he was charming and handsome and fun, and it was really kind of exciting. It was different. I had been married before. We had been married for 12 and a half years, and I didn't have a lot of that courting and fun. And it was exciting. And then all of a sudden, it was like the switch flipped and things just started happening. And there was a lot of jealousy towards family and friends who competed for his time. And that was very frustrating to me because I wanted to include him in everything that I had going. I wanted to share him and our relationship with everyone. And he wasn't interested in that. He just wanted it to be us and nothing else, and that wasn't good enough for him.
You are a nurse leader. You spent your career reading people and situations. So, when did your clinical instinct conflict with your personal reality?
What was the question?
In your job, you're training people, you read the room, you read situations, right? We both do that because we are in caregiving roles, right? Caretaker types of roles, caregiving too. When did your clinical instinct conflict with your personal reality? I,
I didn't have
right,
the insight. It's almost like as a nurse, we blow off whenever we get sick. We're like, "Oh, it's nothing big," and then all of a sudden you're in the hospital because you didn't pay attention to what your body was telling you. In
right.
a relationship, I didn't pay attention to what was happening to me. I just kept making excuses for all of the things that were happening and all of the behaviors that were happening, and I didn't realize, I guess, how bad it was. I mean, I knew he wasn't a nice guy, and I had one failed marriage, and so I didn't wanna have a second one. I was raised in a family that was absolutely amazing. Every Sunday we had 4 generations sitting in a church pew, and there wasn't divorce really in the family, and my parents were very young, 15 and 17 and 2 months pregnant when they got married, so I had phenomenal role models who made it work forever, and my yesterday was my parents' 62nd wedding anniversary,
I
and
get it.
so,
Right.
it was just don't give up in a bad relationship. You figure out a way to do it, and my grandparents were amazing, and it just I didn't see that it was something worse than just a bad relationship or that he was just a bad guy or that he was just, not such a nice guy. I didn't have any clinical insight that it was an unsafe relationship or that it was something that could be detrimental to my health or that it could be hazardous to my health.
Mm.
It was um, something that I came across by accident, purely by accident. And for that, I am forever grateful.
Well, audience, I would like for you to stay with me here and with Rebel, because what Rebel is describing is not weakness. This is what we call in clinical work coercive control. And your body responds exactly the way a nervous system is designed to respond when it's under sustained threat. And we'll come back to that in a moment. I think that people draw a conclusion if you have all these expertise, that you should know better. And the fact of the matter is, you're human. You know, you're human. And I
Mhm.
think we have to allow grace for that, because
Yep.
just because it's in the textbook doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to perfectly live out what's in the textbook. Because if you think about it, when we are in school, we get bombarded with information. We really do. So it's really in the practical living it out piece that you really start to know your role and how to do your job. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that it's unrealistic to say, well, you should have known better. No, not really. Not really. Because you're human. And you know what? If you're already at a state if you already were in a bad relationship,
Right.
9 times out of 10, you were already dysregulated. So you know, and it's easy to say, "Well, you should have known better." But the fact of the matter is there's so many variables that come with that. No, there's so many variables that come with that. So, you said something that stopped me when we first talked, like when we first talked. And you said that finding faith after being isolated from everyone, including God. And so I want to go there because I think a lot of people in the audience have been told that when God feels distant, it's because they did something wrong, that the silence is their fault. Can you tell me about a moment you realized the silence wasn't just grief, it was a faith crisis for you?
This whole relationship taught me a lot about my faith and grace and forgiveness, self-forgiveness actually. When I went to get out of the relationship, when I was isolated, I was very angry at God. I had had one failed marriage. I just told you about my family being phenomenal. I grew up in the Lutheran church. We were all fighting to squeeze into one pew every Sunday morning, and it was to see how many we could get in there. And I didn't understand how God could allow this to happen to me or how God could do this to me. Being isolated from the church, I felt that it was God was disappointed in me or God was frustrated that I had done something wrong in the relationship or didn't do enough to make it a good relationship. And because, of course, we as women, we're good nurturers. We want to fix everything. We're doers. And as a nurse, we take it that much further because we're caregivers. But in a relationship, it takes two people to make it work. And if your partner isn't working with you and they're working against you, it's never going to be a great thing. So, but that took me years to figure out. But I was angry, I was frustrated, and when I was away from the church, I was angry, I was alone, I felt alone, I felt like I had been let down by God, and that was very I don't know what the right word is, it didn't sit right with me because I thought I had done all the right things, I had put the work in for years, I had grown up in the church, I had done Sunday school and Bible school and youth group, and I went to church camp, and then I was on summer staff and did all those things. And I thought that I had put in the time, and so then the church would give back to me, or that my faith would stand strong in the moments when I needed it. And I felt like he wasn't there. But I
Well, did
ended up having. Go ahead.
go ahead. I was just gonna ask, did anyone in the church circle notice something was happening? And
I was about to say, I struggled by myself for a long time because I didn't feel like I would be welcome at church. So when I ended up exiting the relationship and I ended up getting divorced, I didn't feel welcome back at church because I had been isolated. So I had, all of my friends and family I had been estranged from. And,
right.
you pull away, you step away from the friendships, they're off doing their thing. I just felt kind of like that lone person out there. So I didn't feel like I was welcome. And of course, that was the wrong answer, but it took me a while to figure that out. And one of the things that I did at the church camp that I had grown up going to and then being on summer staff, I volunteered as a nurse in the summers and I went up to help check in some campers on a Sunday. And I was in the evening talking to the camp pastor who I had known for years. And he just kind of off the cuff asked me how I was doing. And I said, I've had better times. And it was just a moment where I felt like I could talk to him. And I said, I'm really struggling. I'm angry with God. I just don't understand how God can let bad things happen to good people. And he just very casually said, God doesn't let bad things happen to good people. God is there to help you pull it back together and hold you up and help you through the bad times when they do happen. Life is going to intervene and life is going to happen, but he's there to help you through those bad times. But he doesn't make them happen or let them happen. He's there for you as they happen. And That was some significant food for thought for me. And he had told me to go home and read Kushner's book on when bad things happen to good people. And it was pretty life changing. I read it, and it was kind of that philosophy of why did this happen to me? And taking that why me, why now, and the woe is me syndrome to now that this has happened, what am I going to do about it? And how am I going to move forward? And so I started being able to heal a little bit and move forward.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Well, I really want you to hear, Rebel, and everyone else who's listening, you know, and I say this often, and it's true. His peace is not dependent on your circumstances being resolved. It's a regulated nervous system in the presence of a safe God. But when your nervous system has been under coercive control for months or years, you literally cannot feel safety, even when God's right there. So when your friend made that statement, there was a lot of truth to it. And he was there. It was part of it was, I mean, there's different factors, but part of it was your nervous system was dysregulated. And that's not a faith failure, that's physiology. You know, I, I want to build a little bit of a bridge here between what Rebel experienced and what your body does, because I think the most damaging lie in the church around abuse is that your faith should have been stronger. So let me give you the clinical picture. That's actually a pet peeve of mine. So, coercive control and the nervous system, it, within that realm, it's how isolation triggers sustained sympathetic activation. And when it's the fawn response, specifically how abusers often fawn, is they're going to appease their abuser to maintain safety. And how this response extends to God is performing faith to earn safety. It's very performance oriented. The dorsal vagal shutdown occurs when the nervous system can't sustain the fight or flight. It drops into shutdown. And that feels like numbness. It feels like apathy. It looks like you're experiencing an absence of God's presence. And then you run into spiritual bypassing versus what the physiological reality is. And this is why when people make statements like just pray more, it really doesn't work when your vagus nerve is frozen. So knowledge isn't just power for trauma survivors. Knowledge is safety. And when you understand the silence you felt wasn't God abandoning you, it was your nervous system protecting you by shutting down. Everything shifts. So let your nervous system hear that you were not abandoned. Your body was doing exactly what it was designed to do. And then with the other piece of that, Rebel, is that you had someone after you came out of that, after you physically came out of that. A lot of people think when you're in these relationships, if you're physically out, you're good. That's not true because that's like the beginning of you surviving actually and getting to a place of thriving. That's really the beginning of the story because after that is where the real healing occurs. When you met this gentleman, you were able, he was a safe place and you were able to, he was like a co-regulatory person for you. So you were able to kind of start to realize and hear all the more it God was with you and you were able to receive that, you know. So when you hear dorsal vagal shutdown, does that match what you experienced?
Oh my gosh. I had never thought of it in those terms before, even being a nurse, but I didn't sleep well. I didn't eat right. I was a bundle of nerves all the time. My father referred to me as more high strung than normal.
Mhm.
I was just literally hanging on the edge. And I had, like, I feel like I guess I would describe it as heartburn all the time. I just had that upset stomach where you felt like your heart was in your throat all the time. And you felt like if you could throw up, you probably would feel so much better. I just was on the edge of being sick all the time because I was a bundle of nerves. And I felt like I walked on eggshells every day. And when I got home from work, if I was home first, I never knew who was gonna walk in the door or when he came home, or if he was home and I was driving home, I had that sense of doom, like, who is gonna be there? Is it gonna be Dr. Jekyll or is it gonna be Mr. Hyde? Just that tension where you're constantly so tense that you have your neck is a bunch of steel rods
Right.
and you can't relax. It's just overwhelming. But I never used all the big fancy words that you use today. I'm overwhelmed. Y- Yeah.
You you have this
Yes, I
keynote.
can totally identify with it. And, but to me, I thought it's all in my head and it's just something I've made up. But
No.
you're saying that all of these physical symptoms are real and valid, and I think that's important for everybody out there to hear that what I felt, what they're feeling is real, and those are physical signs that you're in the wrong relationship, and that it's time to think about maybe getting to safety and to perhaps a healthier relationship.
Your person should be someone that you feel safe with,
Absolutely.
not somebody you wanna run from.
Right. Right.
You
Absolutely.
you have this keynote that you spoke to me about. Your past is not your potential. And I want you to take us into the turn, not the moment everything got fixed. I kind of feel like it's still fixing, you know, because we know healing isn't linear. At the moment you started to come back to yourself, to God, what did that look like?
The moment I came back,
Well, you had mentioned the gentleman who told you
Pastor
that God was
Randy,
with you. Yes, yes.
Pastor Randy,
Mhm.
he he lit a fire under me that, well, I guess I should say he lit a spark of because I was still a shell of who I am today. It still took a little bit of work,
Right.
but, coming back was freeing, I guess is a good word. He enjoyed going back to church and settling back into a pew on Sunday morning and getting involved in a couple of different committees. I enjoyed getting involved back in church camp again. But I think what I enjoyed more was starting to connect with sharing my story about where I had been in my relationship and how it impacted me and my I guess even the physical side of it, but, how important it was to educate people about unhealthy relationships and how unsafe it can be, and that you don't have to stay there, and that there is help out there, and it's not all in your head, and there's more out there for you, and that the sky truly is the limit and that God isn't testing you or he's not punishing you by isolating you. It's the bad actor that you're with that has pulled you away from everything you know and love, and there's a way out. And that
You
was great for my recovery. and it just got me going. And I have Bible verses all over my office that have lifted me up over the years, and I take them anywhere I go.
Well, I think this is a beautiful story, and I'm really hoping that the audience feels more hope and inspiration from it. Would you mind doing something with me tonight? Because I don't want anyone listening to leave this conversation without some sort of tool. So we're going to do something together. And are you open to that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I want to walk everyone through a practice I call safe testimony. It's for anyone who has ever silenced their story to stay safe. And of course, Rebel, I would love for you to participate with us. If
Absolutely.
something comes up for you, you can name it or not. If there's no wrong way with this, close your eyes or soften your gaze. Bring one hand to your chest, not your heart, just a little lower, your sternum, and right where your vagus nerve passes through. Feel the weight of your hand. Is there any tension there? Tightness in your forehead, jaw? Now, without forcing anything, I want you to let your body hear one true sentence about your story. Just one. You don't have to say it out loud. It might be, that happened to me. It might be, I survived that. Or it might be, I am still here. Now breathe with me. In through your nose for 4, hold for 2, out through your mouth for 6. Again, in for 4, out for 6. This isn't visualization, this is physiology. You're telling your nervous system that the story doesn't have to stay locked anymore. You're safe enough to hold it and to let it hold you. Let your nervous system hear that you are not running from it. You can open your eyes when you're ready. Rebel, I just want to thank you for your courage, for your story, for sitting in the hard places with us. I want to close the way we always do with prayer. And if you're listening, I want you to do what Rebel just did. One hand on your chest, not because you have to, because you can, because your body is allowed to be part of this. Father, I am grateful that you made these bodies, that you knit together the very nervous system that we are learning to regulate. I am so grateful for Rebel, for the years she walked alone, for the courage it took to come back, not just to faith, but to herself. And I am praying for the woman who is still in the silence, who is sitting in an empty room, wondering if you left, who has been told that her faith wasn't strong enough. Father, let her nervous system hear the truth. You were there in the silence. You were there in the shutdown. You were there in the numbness. That wasn't abandonment. That was her body protecting her the way you designed it to. And now, scripture breath prayer, Psalms 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Breathe in, be still. Breathe out and know. Breathe in that I am God. And then breathe out. His peace is not dependent on your circumstances being resolved. It is a regulated nervous system and the presence of a safe God. Rebel, where can people find you? Where can they hear more of your story?
They can find me on LinkedIn at Rebel Heasley, DNP.
Fantastic. And if this episode helped you, text it to one person you know is struggling, one person who needs to hear. The silence wasn't God leaving, it was her body protecting her. And Rebel's message, say it with me one more time, audience, hear it again. Your past may inform you,
Inform you.
but it
but it
does not
does
define
not
your
define
potential.
your potential.
Until next time, you're not too much, you are not too far, and you are not alone.